Well, welcome to the first episode of the Wandering Mr. Missy podcast. And today, as our first ever guest, we have an outstanding photographer, Matt Dutile, who, among the many talents, is really a tremendous travel photographer.
Thank you.
Matt, will you do me a favor and expand on that?
Yeah, sure. I'm New York City based. I'd say my key tenets are travel, portraiture, and interiors. And I've been doing this for 15 years, little over 15 years now, which is crazy to say when I think about it. And I'm like, has it been that long? Have we, it's been so far, and yeah, it's so soon ago.
That's cool. Yeah, we had met way back when in Arizona. At the time, was you. So prior to you becoming a professional photographer, you were getting more into. I remember you doing really, really good lifestyle work, and that was actually a progression from what you were doing. Can you get into what you were and kind of how you got from there to here?
I mean, I was working in Arizona at a PR firm. I went to Arizona State University and came out of the Cronkite School for Journalism there, and then moved that into PR. So I had played around with a camera back in high school for darkroom classes, but not really connected with it at all at that point. So I put it away, went to college. Also went to college to have some fun, I grew up in cold New Hampshire and moved to sunny Arizona. And I got into this PR job, and we actually had some like grip and grin charity events, things like that. And I wanted to pick up a camera just to catalog some of that. I had some friends who had Nikon D80s at the time, I think they were. And they loved just taking photos and sharing them. And I was like, well, this is kind of interesting. I remember sort of liking this back in high school. So I just picked up a camera again with the aim of, capture some work events. We had a trip coming up with friends to Australia in a couple months. So I was like, well, that's really exciting. Be nice to take some photos on that. And very quickly, just like it clicked with me this time. I like to call it like the beams of Jesus rays, the epiphany moment where you're like, oh, this is it, do this, it clicked quickly, and I started shooting with people, and lifestyle is really like the imagery I'd been looking at that was inspiring me. That kind of like super fun, playful, the Coca-Cola ads, your T-Mobile and AT&T and all the friends gathered together and having fun and skateboarding, and what a wonderful time. And so that's I guess kind of the imagery I gravitated to at first and started shooting that. So I started shooting with friends, and then some models, and then I started working with the modeling agencies in Arizona and shooting test cards and just test shoots to really build up a portfolio and book as I'm figuring out how to use this camera and what to do. So that's really where I started out, and through that got decent enough quickly to start shooting paid test cards. I get some entry catalog work. When I realized it was a thing I wanted to do, I treated it sort of like a business too. Yeah, so it's not only how do you make the craft better, how do you make the images better, but how do I reach out to people? How do I put up the website, build the things, reach out an email that are going to get me work? So I get these little entry catalog shoots, weight loss shoots, things like that. So people were my primary focus to begin with, especially when you guys met me.
Well, and I remember when we were sitting there talking in our kitchen in Scottsdale, and you were saying you were moving to New York and you know exactly what you were going to do. And I remember when you left, I said to Keith, because photography is a challenge. I mean, we all know it's certainly not an easy business, especially long term, that you've done and we've done. And I remember saying to you, like, he's going to do it. I mean, this is going to work out so well for him because A, you were talented, but B, all the things you said, you had the business and you had the drive. So it was just like, you could just tell there was like a magic too when we met you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But again, it's going from actually working at a PR firm. So you legitimately had a job. You went to school for a specific thing, and
I just jumped.
Yeah. Oh, instead of this,
Safety net's gone.
I'm in Arizona. I'm making money here. I have an actual job. I've got a good side hustle. And you're like, no, I'm going to drop it all and move to New York City, like the most cutthroat place in the entire US, where
Yeah, it was crazy in retrospect.
yeah.
I mean, literally just cut the cord and moved, and I thought New York was the place to be to go and assist. I mean, I'd seen the market in Arizona, and there's some great photographers out there, but it's not like the wealth of people, and especially if you want to get into assisting and learning more from a diverse range of photographers, New York's the place to be on that. Of course, I decided to do it during the 07-08 market crash. So that was brilliant
Yeah, there
timing
you
on
go.
my part. Yeah. So not only is anyone not hiring assistants, they're not hiring photographers to start in general for jobs. Like
Yeah, I remember.
everything
I remember
crashed out.
And so,
So yeah, it was fortuitously terrible timing.
so then how did, or what was the timeline on getting to where you are? We'll say where you are now, obviously.
Yeah. So I ended up coming to New York and doing some of the same things. I had the connections from the modeling agencies in Arizona, which connected to me to their New York branches. Started shooting a couple paid test comps for them. Kept up with some of the catalog people, and again did some of those like Live Strong weight loss stories, Women's World weight loss stories, things like that. That would just like eke me a little bit along at a time. I did a little bit of work for the New York Times on some small day projects, and things like New York Mag Grub Street. I would go and try to hustle and shoot like $15 restaurant listings and string 8 of those together in a day because their job was to create like a catalog of every restaurant in New York City, right? With like, 8 to 10 photos at each one. So they had nothing to pay for it for such a big environment, but it was work that was always churning. So I did the cheap stuff just to string along and try to make a buck and eat some ramen the next day, and not the good kind of ramen I eat now, that couple noodle stuff, there's a difference back then. So it was just stringing along. I did have some assisting jobs, assisted probably 6 or 7 different photographers on sort of 1-day, 2-day projects, but unfortunately, I am the world's worst assistant, which is terrible because it is such a phenomenal way to learn from people. You're in that environment. You're seeing what they're shooting, how they're interacting with crew, how the production is put together. Like, I encourage people, if you can still do it to this day, assist if you want to get into commercial photography because it's such a great way to learn. But I am so bad at it. So bad. I would just like drop scrims and like feel like I was lost. Someone made me the third AC on a shoot one time, and I drove the equipment van into a parking garage and scraped the hell out of the entire side of it on the way. So I was like, well, I hope you got the insurance. So I was just bad at it. So it didn't last long for me. So I was like, I gotta just hustle and figure out how to do this on my own.
So sorry.
I'm just going to say, while we've been talking the photography aspect of this, but let's show people that are watching some actual photographs that again. So while being an assistant might not have been your cup of tea,
Not so much.
Yeah, but you're apparently really good with the camera, and this is going to lead so much more. So let's go.
Such a shame too. Like I can run my own sets perfectly great, but when it's someone else's set, I'm a hot mess.
Trust me, I hear you.
I guess this is the Amazon in Peru. This is Pacaya Samiria Reserve down the river from Iquitos. So Iquitos in Peru is kind of cut off from the rest of the country. You can either only fly in or barge out through the Amazon River and its tributaries.
And what was your assignment that had you here?
Yeah, this one was last year. Boy, time is a flat circle. Let me tell you. I was thinking on that, like, is it 2 years? But I think it's last April. And this was for Travel and Luxury, and it was covering this new luxury riverboat that had opened. So obviously tough assignments on those ones. You got a big old suite, full glass windows. And yeah, we were sailing down up and down the Amazon River and some of its tributaries for 4 nights,
Interesting.
and kind of exploring into each one, meeting different small communities. It was a gastronomic tour, so there was a chef who's well known in Peru who was there and really working with the local ingredients and how they put those together. And yeah, all the wildlife. It's a fantastic
So
trip.
just because I've never been in the spot like where I've had been on a beautiful a beautiful assignment like this.
Mhm.
So what are your marching orders? Like what are the parameters of do
Yeah.
they, what is the laundry list of what they ask you?
It depends. Each publication is a little different. Some will give me very tight shot lists, like we want you to capture all of these things. Others are like, we know what you do, go out and do it.
Those are
Sometimes
the
you
best.
get yeah, I know. So sometimes you get the shot list, or at least like the story copy from the writer if they went a month, 2, 3 beforehand. And so you have a sense of what their story is and what you want to look in for visuals to help complement that. To some degree, there's like you want to find little connections, and others it's really just figure out the vibe of the story and how that illustrates their words.
That's cool.
So each publication is a bit different. Each give you a bit more leeway on what to find, what to look for. And again, if the market these days is if they're hiring you, they know what you do. You have kind of a consistency of voice and vision. So they have a sense of what they'll get from you stylistically, you
Mm.
know?
Oh,
This
look
is
at the
absolutely stunning.
scale. Amazing.
Yeah, the scale,
Yeah.
like beyond, it's hard to wrap your head around.
So that's really what I wanted to illustrate on some of those is this is in Antarctica, obviously. The left is an ice landing in Hanus Bay, south of the Antarctic Circle. And the right is in Port Charcot. Beautiful spot with a lot of penguin rookeries. And yeah, really what I try to bring to some of these environments is a sense of scale, a sense of like how large this amount of ice is.
Yeah.
And this is the teeniest fraction of one little spot, right?
Right. Mhm.
And you can see the people walking through it and how large those snow buildups are there.
I'm always amazed when they talk about when the glaciers are calving and they look impressive, but when they actually mention just how much
Yeah.
ice has just fallen into the water and that it doesn't seem like it made a dent, you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
there's a lot of ice in the
I
world.
mean, you pass by in Antarctica some of these icebergs where you're like, everything's the coolest iceberg you've ever seen. And so they're just towering behemoths. Some of them they're like, that's bigger than the ship we're on.
Right.
Mhm, yeah.
Yeah.
That's only the part you can see.
And that's the part you can see. Yeah. So much bigger.
Yep.
Oh,
And speaking of
that's
rookeries, here
cute.
we are. It's awesome.
Yeah, so in an environment like that, every environment comes with something different, right? In Antarctica, it's going to be the landscapes and the wildlife because that's really what's there to show. Now, I always try to bring people and scale into focus as well. So that's thus why you have the other shots where you've got the ship and people in that, but you have to show kind of what this is. And I was looking and found this frame where it really felt like the penguin colony was kind of endless going into the distance. And it's tens of thousands of penguins, clustered in this area. And I saw these ones popping up and down on the rocks, and one had topped down. So I knew if I would just wait, I could probably get one, highlighted with a little sense of action to break out from
They're
the scale of them. Right.
Yeah, happy feet.
yeah.
Exactly. So mine for travel photography, what I always say is it's story building,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
What separates a good travel assignment, good imagery from or single good images from a total good feature is the story you put it together as.
Yes.
So you have to have this rounded sense of place, of details, of people, of food, if it's the right, all these go together into what is the experience of the destination or the thing you are doing. So like
Perfect.
I've seen many photographers go to Antarctica, right? And they'll come back with like truly incredible wildlife captures and even so much better than I could do. It's just that's their focus. It's amazing. But unless the story is say purely on what this particular penguin group does or this seal or things like that, or then you need more of a rounded sense. You need to tell more of the story, what the full experience was. Those people coming in on the ice landings, the penguins, the food that was on the ship spaces itself, right? It's something I encourage people to do with their travel photography is instead of just that, like I stood here, I pointed the camera and took a shot. Think about everything that goes into what you're experiencing and how you visually put that together.
Yeah, again, we can't agree more. Again,
Yeah.
you take it right out of again, you didn't take it out of our mouths because it's been in your mouth for a really long time. Hear these thoughts.
Yeah. This was in Bhutan, which is a favorite destination of mine. It's just such an incredible country. So unique. The people are amazing. So two different setups. One's the famous Taksang Monastery, Tiger's Nest, outside Paro. Pretty iconic shot everyone's seen. This one I actually went to in the afternoon. Everyone was saying, all the guys were like, we go in the morning, but some other photographer had actually included me in that, well, the morning's nice, but the sun's actually behind it, so it's sort of all backlit. And I got lucky, we had a sunny day, so we scrambled to go for the afternoon, and you get that wonderful light on the side of it, kind of illuminating it, the shadow on the rock of it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and then the left is a festival in Bumtang Valley at Jambe Hakeng, which is a temple there, a very old 8th century temple. And the Bhutanese come out fully dressed in their beautiful ceremonial garbs, formal wear for these festival days. It's it's a day for everyone to show off and to celebrate, and it's really wonderful to see. So I went around and found people to take different portraits of as we are going around, and I would just ask them, hey, can I take your shot? And I always bring with me a little Polaroid camera.
Nice.
So it's a sort of a one for you, one for me. It's a way to give back while you're traveling too. It really opens doors to connect with people, because if you have something that you can give and present to them and kind of see that smile, it's a new engagement. It's a better way to get in the doors with people who may be more hesitant on a shot. So this group of young girls is one of them. I was like, oh, I'll have a photo for you, and then you can take one for me. And they're like, oh, okay, they love that. And I think there's people who can just kind of like level you with their look and just have that stare, and certainly she's one of them where it's just, I don't know, there's just that connection there, right?
So I want to just add on the shot of the monastery. Again, it's a good illustration of like it's an iconic view of it, but of course everybody goes for the same shot. They go for the morning shot. They get that you actually decided, well, as opposed to getting the morning shot, I'm going to take the one again, the shot less traveled, and you get something. You take the same scene but get a different shot, which is cool.
Yeah, and sometimes you just have to make your own decisions on those based off of what your personal aesthetic is, what kind of visuals you gravitate to, the style you gravitate to, and maybe just having either a sense of the light or, again, how you want to put together a story. Because I can't tell you how many times I've been told, like, by either guides or people in the area, like, oh, that's it. This is the spot. This is the photo spot. Go there. And I get there. I'm like, this is not the spot. Like, or is not the right time at the spot. Like, I don't ask people any advice on sunsets anymore, because invariably someone always sends you to the hill looking at the sun setting, which is visually wonderful to appreciate. But for a photo, it's the same orange ball in the sky hitting the same horizon every single place you go to. Far more interesting is turning around and what is the sun hitting, you know?
Yes.
So that's more on how I orient on, like, what's to the side, what's the sun directing onto versus just another orange ball in the sky setting,
Yeah, and depending on It's like I remember seeing what's going to say like what are the iron some a mountain range in Colorado, and
Okay.
I remember seeing I was there with a friend. I'm like, look at this. Wow, it's a bunch of rocks. It's not really that interesting. I'm like, but it's called the iron something. Well, I'm thinking that it's probably when the sun hits it just right, it probably glows red because of the iron deposit. So I'm like, let's come here at just before dawn so I can catch when it's and exactly for about a 10-minute window of the entire, well, probably
Yeah.
10 on the other side too. So at 20 minutes of the entire day, these are gorgeous. Then,
Yep.
then suddenly the rest of the day, they're just meh.
It's cool and it's flat and
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, timing is everything with photography. The light is everything for
Yeah.
travel photography. I had early in my career, Philip Lee Harvey, who's a very well-known Lonely Planet photographer. He gave me some advice because I went out and sought input from people as I got into travel. And I don't know if I can curse on here, but we're going for it. He said, "Don't take great photos in bad light," is the paraphrase of it. You know, uh, so it's you don't want to be in an amazing spot, but be there at 12 p.m. at noon.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Like,
Yes.
sure, there's a great frame here, but the light is not there for it. So make sure you keep those considerations in mind. And you got to wake up at 4 a.m. and get out there. Like, that's the
Yes.
only way to do good morning light.
Totally.
Hold on, we didn't talk about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So this is in Bhutan again. It's a Gangte Monastery, another head spiritual kind of area of the country. And this is just a nice early morning in November and December. The skies clear up really beautifully towards the winter, and you get this just wonderful atmosphere of the novice monks kind of playing around, sweeping the courtyard, joking around. So I try to find those moments of life, you
Mhm.
know, those little, like, I call them found moments,
Mhm.
where you just sort of felt like you wandered into a spot and just were an outside observer and it just clicked without being also a direct engagement, as opposed to, say, the portrait before. That's clearly a direct portrait subject engagement with the little girl. This is just sort of a found
So what
thing.
when you before you go, the research that you do, but then once you're there, what sort of connection do you feel that you get? Do you feel that you're just an observer, or do you get in with it looked like with that, especially with that
Oh
portrait?
no, I usually get directly involved.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, my favorite part of traveling is I love meeting people. I love making those connections, learning about their culture or just their personal stories.
mhm.
To me, that's really what drives so much of my interest in travel and what I want people to see from my work and take out of it. Um, so something like this just happened to be, we wandered through the doors and I saw the scene happening. Okay, so you got to click that photo and get that quick before they really settle out.
Sure.
But then I go up to them and ask, like, "Hey, can we take photos? Are we okay with that? Is there someone I can talk to and engage in some portraits?" So things like that. I think when it's a little far away scenes like this and you have to capture a slice of life that's not featuring any one person, it's okay to quickly grab that photo. Most of the times, though, like 95% of the times, you go and you seek out permission first and you make sure. And honestly, if they'd come back and said, "Hey, we really don't allow photos here," well, this shot would have just been buried anyways.
Right. Mhm.
There's no point being a traveler somewhere if you're not appreciating and respecting the place and the culture that you go to.
Totally.
Well said again.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Bhutan.
and so Bhutan is for me one of the most visually interesting countries. I love it. I'm leading a series of workshops there over the coming year, kind of tailored to people who want to just travel and experience things differently. This it may be them like, "I want to learn more about photography," or "I just want to go to some really cool places," and we'll talk about some presenting visual stories as well. This is a community called Merak in the far east. It's a Brokba community, which are these semi-nomadic yak herders. You can see the man in there. I believe it's actually a sheep wool jacket when it's red. But it's a very traditional style they wear, helps wick away the rain as they're out herding. and the community itself is 1,000 or so people on the slope of a mountain up at 11,000 feet. So it's very far removed. About 200 or so tourists a year is what make it there, is what they say. So it's definitely a more remote destination, and I love those kind of places because you're connecting with people in a different way. They're not oversaturated by tourism and like, yeah, okay, you there's a genuine sense of welcoming and hospitality. So like this man and his family invited us into their home, and their daughter spoke English well because they all learn English as kids in the school. He didn't, but she was able to talk and translate with us. I've got a guide too. You have to travel around with a guide in Bhutan. So we're all working, communicating together. I found this wonderful light by the window and I was like, hey, come here. And it just creates this dramatic sculpting to a portrait. I do like a bit of moodiness and drama. I've definitely been told that in my images, and when I get hired on assignments, they're like, "Give us the matte moodiness." So I'm like, okay,
that works. Yeah, that speaks to me too.
Yeah.
There's just that sculpting to the light. There's that beautiful sense of it. Yeah, I love it. And then the shot with the flags, we noticed there was a hill across from the village, and we're like, well, that looks directly onto it. That's probably a perfect layout of the whole village. So we kind of bushwhacked around a trail, found a spot where some prayer flags were stuck up on the side of the hill, and it turned out to make a really wonderful framing as well to get that sense of a culture there as well. Because the tricky part with landscapes is you can very easily end up into everything's on one dimension.
Right.
Yes.
And you really want a sense of depth in landscapes. I think just gives it a bit more of an immersive feel.
Absolutely.
Those iconic trees.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, Madagascar, Avenue of the Baobabs. This is one that had been on my list for a while when I had gone there. It was something like I watched Planet Earth, and I remember them narrating about the baobabs and flying a little paraglider through it, and I'm thinking like, oh my God, I have to go here. And it's truly as incredible as it seems. It's a little bit more remote area in Western Madagascar. But that light at the end of the day on the trees when it's coming in, and then people are going back to their back and forth from the village, from Morondava to some of the smaller communities there, just so beautiful. And these collection of boys, just another group where you wander into a village and people are like, what's up? What are you doing? How's it going? And I love that curiosity they had. And this was just a total wing shot. I had it held low and I opened it wide up and pulled a wide lens, and it got real close to them. So it felt like that, like the little huddled in and looking around you sort of viewpoint.
It's adorable.
But again, bring a Polaroid and able to give them Polaroid photos afterwards. So it helps create that engagement. And it's a nice way to give back to people too, because obviously I'm there. Travel assignments are certainly not the best paying assignments, or sometimes much at all. But I'm still there on some financial gain usually. Whereas a lot of the people you're working with may not. So if you can be able to give back in some ways, I think that fosters nice community and relationships.
Absolutely.
And yeah, with this one is in Oaxaca, Mexico. The right of the food in this is Casa Oaxaca El Restaurante. It's a very famous restaurant.
Your mic is going. The volume is going down.
Oh, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this one's Casa Oaxaca El Restaurante. Famous kind of restaurant there that's pioneered the modern Oaxacan Mexican gastronomic movement, I'd say. Someone else may debate me on that, so don't keep me 100%. But very well known. They do these beautiful traditional Mexican foods, but also with the Oaxacan flair. This is with like crickets and grasshoppers and avocado and radish and all sorts of little florals and
Ooh, can I
spices.
interject a question then? What is
Yeah.
exotic dish or food or regional special?
Ooh.
Yeah. So yeah, since you've been all over the world, what's good? So if you had to choose like one,
That may not even be a fair
yeah,
question.
yeah. Is it hard? Obviously, it's the same way you trying to pick 10 pictures out of your Uber. But what's good if you
Yeah, I know. I
what
don't
jumps
know.
out?
Because this looks
I
pretty.
don't know if I describe anything as like weird food.
Oh, it doesn't
It's
have to be
just
weird.
more
Just some
like
jumps out. Like you, oh my God,
culturally different. Yeah. I mean, I've had a snake soup in Thailand that sort of lit my hair on fire. Uh, I remember that
yeah, good.
once. Oh, some might say a tostada full of crickets and grasshoppers and mealworms is pretty out there.
Mhm.
Uh, Delicious and beautiful though. I've eaten dried yak meat with the fermented yak cheese in Bhutan. Um, Oh God, there's always something like, well, that's different. And sometimes it's things that surprise you. Like Bhutan too has in this community has a flower called pangimeto that they only harvest for a couple weeks in the fall. And it just blooms. It's a low mountain flower, and they harvest it and they make it into either a stew or a tea, and it's just like really wonderful, bitter, florally sort of concoction. So it's things like that that sometimes surprise you that I've never heard of, never would have thought of, and
Yeah.
can't find anywhere else.
Right. And
Yeah.
then this photo to the left, I'm sorry, because I interrupted you when you were describing
No, so,
the Oaxacan dish.
so this is a traditional Palenque distillery of mezcal in Santiago Mazatlan.
Okay.
These guys are Mezcal Macoricos, really wonderful guys, amazing distillery. They put out some amazing mezcal. I think you can get some of it in the States, though it's definitely pricey because they're good. They're good at what they do. And they're preparing a roast here, so they've cut the pineapples of the agave into pieces.
Okay.
It's usually lava stones that are laid down over some charcoals that's lit on fire, and then they're putting agave hemp over everything to sort of insulate the pineapple from the direct stone contact. And then they put that all together. They bury it, and that's how you get that smokiness of mezcal. It is not from a worm or something like that. It is from actually being fire roasted.
Okay.
That's cool.
Now, did you do the research for this prior to arriving in Mexico, or was this something?
Yes.
Okay.
So I always do a little bit of, there's a bit of both, right? So some of it was I knew about the palenques and distilleries, and I knew they were in Mazatlan, and I wanted to go see those, but I didn't really know of ones to go to or that much. So I, on this one, got there a couple days before the writer and wanted to do a little scouting of my own. I'd always wanted to go to Oaxaca too. I think it's such a phenomenal destination. Beautiful sense of culture and boutique hotels and amazing food and crafts. So I knew some places I wanted to visit. I hired a local guide for a day to bring me around to some of the distilleries, discovered those, and then came back in other days with the writer when I knew, like, yeah, this one was really cool. It was beautiful. What they're doing is amazing. Let's go here. Sometimes that works. I go first, the writer does. Sometimes the writer's first, and then I'm going. Those are nice ones when we're traveling together and we can sort of create those stories together.
That's
So
cool.
there's always a bit of preceding, figuring out where we're going, and then like getting there and finding things and wandering down the street. And while that's an amazing opportunity or something over here, so it's a combo, right?
Yeah,
Right.
that's great.
That's
So, which brings me to another question. So, I'm sorry, but when you travel personally, when you're, how do, I don't know if you travel
Yeah.
differently, but
Yeah. So yeah,
A little bit.
yeah.
Yes, I don't always work. There's kind of like when I go on a photo mission, there's a part of my brain that switches on, and there's a way of doing things, of making connections with people, of again getting up at 4 a.m. and getting out there for sunrise, picking spots that are going to be visually more interesting. So it's not always a a delightful way to vacation travel.
Yeah, you're not.
It's usually I'm exhausted usually by the end of the trip.
Yes.
So like when my wife and I travel on vacation, I don't bomb into photo mode the whole time. Now,
You
I'll
enjoy.
certainly be out there looking for images here and there, but casually so. And it comes with like a little heartbreak. Like I have to step back. I have to be like, okay, you're not on photo mode. This is vacation.
Yeah,
You know,
be present.
because it's always like you go to a place that's amazing. We did a trip to Japan in this past fall. There's some of those photos behind me actually.
Okay.
And I know what to look for on getting some nice snaps as we're going along. Oh, that's a beautiful framing with the shrines or some trees this way. But I'm not going out and like seeking the cultural connections, trying to like get someone in a very cool robe, interesting portraits. When I'm on vacation, I'm sort of like, leave them alone. I'm not on work, right? Which when you come back doesn't really give you a rounded photo story. So I always go to these sessions and be like, wow, that was amazing, but oh, it could have been such a great photo visual if we put it together in this way. But because I'm on vacation, it's like, all right, I have some nice photos from there, but it's not like a story that wows me, right?
Right.
I think there's a different approach to it when you're going out there for those visuals.
But yeah, you can still obviously we should do it, just not as quite as concise.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, I have clients who still pick up and buy these images from me now. They go into my stock catalog and they're licensed out that way. So I'll still make some money in some individual sales. And it just, to me, it's not the photo story, right?
Right.
I wouldn't know. It's missing elements that I would say make it a good editorial magazine story.
Okay. But at least.
And so actually,
Uh-oh.
so knowing what that is, yeah. So this is Myanmar.
Myanmar, I mean, truly one of my favorite places too. I certainly hope they are doing well. They're in the midst of a civil war right now.
Awful.
So quite difficult for them, and hopefully that settles out to the people's benefit, because there really are such wonderful and incredible people there. Beautiful country. I'm definitely attracted to Buddhist countries for sure. There's just something there for me with the way people interact, the lifestyles. One was like a bridge in the end of the day, and temples, and right. This is an area called Bagam. It's around a river bend, and it's an old kingdom of Pagan, and something like 4,000 temples and stupas are amidst the plains. I think there's a smaller collection that's been whittled down and been picked apart from than that high peak. But then there's a company, Balloons Over Bagan, that uses balloon rides every sunrise at it. So it made wonderful to get in a balloon and get some of those aerial shots over the temples, and then to find a temple and watch them as they went by. Yeah, and the stupas there are just incredible, and some of them are quite massive, others of them are small little pagodas, and you've got at this point there were still goat herders moving through with their herds and things like that. So it's a really wonderful place, and I don't know, it just feels magical. I think what I've found over the years is I like to find places sort of where culture and environment intersect, if that makes sense. So like I want to meet the people and amazing portraits and their food and the textiles and how they live, and I want that understanding to a photo. But I also want places that are spectacular from the landscapes, from the visual side of things, as well. And kind of where those come together is what I really love.
Beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely outstanding.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
So what of the bazillion assignments that you've had, if you had to pick one to say was your favorite, what would that be?
Oh God. It is like picking your favorite child. It's Michael. Michael's it. No, I have no idea. I mean, I say that I have three favorite countries, which I highlighted in the photos, are probably Bhutan, Madagascar, Myanmar. And I think it comes back because those are places where the culture and the environment intersect so beautifully, and each kind of in their own unique ways, a little bit more removed from globalism and its influences. I don't think you'd find a McDonald's chain in any one of those countries,
Right.
or a Starbucks or anything. So there's a sense of a place that's different from the perspective you may experience every day, you know?
That's awesome.
Which I think is something important to have in travel, and to go to those kind of places where you see something totally different from your way of life, and how people get along there, and you can bring that home with you, that sense of how life is there and what they do and those connections you make, sort of outside of our Western bubble, you know?
The bubble.
And the theoretical, the sweet spot of travel is it's being able to see, again, both the similarities and the differences. They all wear clothes. They all do some form of what everybody else does. It's just how they uniquely go about that.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love my Italian vacation as well. I mean, Italy is amazing. Come on. And, or northern light hunting on a luxury ship in Norway, or a big Lux safari camp in Botswana and things like I love these things too. And or bouncing around amazing European cities and the culture, or same for South America and so many wonderful. So I do love those stories too. And we're going to chateaus and Michelin dinners for this whole week as part of it's like
someone's got to do it.
no problem. Okay. But yeah, the ones that really drive me wild are those interesting destinations outside of your perspective.
Very cool.
And I know I saw you mention that you've been to all 7 continents, which is pretty remarkable. If you could think of a spot, I don't know, like, what is your bucket list for where you want to go?
Yes, yeah. Is there a place you haven't been that you're like, okay, this is on my list. I need to get there.
Yeah.
Or get back.
This has definitely been a crazy year. I have not only made all 7 continents in total, I made 7 continents in the first 7 months of this year. Yeah, so that's been a little bit insane. I don't think I would do that again. I'm finally getting to sleep once more.
Time zone.
Yeah, I mean, there's always so many wonderful places to go and to see. I've got a couple that are sort of like the trips that got away from me that I've always wanted to get back to. Rwanda would be one of them. Out there gorilla checking the new conservation works they're doing to repopulate some of the parks they have, after a lot of time without reintroducing species in those areas. That just seems like such an amazing moment to connect with the landscape, the wildlife, the people. Where else? Mongolia is a destination that's kind of loomed large for me that I've somehow not made. I've had several trips that almost went. I had one last year that I was set. Everything was booked and I was going, and I got some debilitating flu-like sickness, not COVID, and it just had to cancel it. We pushed back flights for 3-4 days, and then by the time that happened, I missed what would be our connection flights to another region. So it all caved out. So that's one that I'll get back to one day. But I try to go during the winter time because I'm insane, apparently. I mean, I see a lot of the summer steeps and maybe the eagle hunters in the fall and things like that, and I just want to go out into the normal areas and remote in the winter and see what life is like then, and come up with something a little different, and try not to freeze to death.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're doing it, it can be done. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a lot of extra batteries.
Yeah.
So then what would be your next, since already in the brief years we've known you, you've chosen a different path since we first met you. What do you see in the future? Yeah. Like what path or what?
Well, I mean, my work is a real blend of, I'd say, travel, portraiture, interiors in terms of what I shoot. The interiors are a large growing part of my business now. which has been quite wonderful. You get into these amazing homes and apartments all around New York City, or sometimes I'm flown out to different countries to shoot them, for either different magazines or for the architects and interior designers. I think it still falls under kind of a cohesive style for me, because I think of homes like character portraits. So it's finding a way to essentially turn off all the lights and see how the light moves and sculpts the home throughout the day. And you can find these not only great room shots, but beautiful little vignettes of details. And I like to introduce homeowners into that. So it's not only the space, but how we live in the space is my approach to interiors. So that's been a big growing area. It certainly coincides with hospitality work, with restaurants, with hotel shoots and things like that. And same with the portraiture leads me to like interesting projects. Like I have an artist portrait series that I shoot that I really love doing. It's just a complete creative playtime. I just find artists I like. I say, hey, let's get together for 2 hours. No fees to it. You get some images afterwards, and we just kind of riff and see what we can come up with, get them in action. I mean, the first rule of good photography is put interesting things in front of your camera, you know?
I would say that helps. Yeah. So
Yeah. So
it's a pretty good, it's a pretty good tip.
it gets you, you know, if you want interesting photos, you need interesting things happening or interesting people. So yeah, I love connecting with different artists that way. And it comes back to editorials always. Like someone from a magazine will see it and go like, wow, that's amazing. Okay, can we hire you for this? So it's kind of great marketing connections.
Nice.
But yeah, hopefully it'll just be, the business will continue to expand and grow that way, to work with more commercial travel clients. There's just a balance in figuring out how to do it all economically. The travel sphere is very competitive. It's very difficult to be in, and the prices are not great in it, because you get to go to these amazing places. And if you're shooting for magazines, it's just a factor of the diversification of the ad market these days. Not as many companies are buying just their ads in glossy magazines. So the magazines have less production budget to work with each issue, thus less what they can pay and hire out for on photos. So you have to figure out how to make it work in other avenues, whether it's licensing after to hotels or restaurants on a shoot, or tourism boards, or how you utilize those connections to get that kind of work that can make you money in that part of the industry. Again, for me, I found that nice balance of it with more steady and localized interiors, and being able to shoot those around New York market, not run around everywhere. Because while travel is amazing and super fun every time, it can also be exhausting.
Yep, totally.
You know? So you figure it out. You find a balance, right?
Yeah, it's funny. People, it's like so many things, whether people think that like being an actor must be cool, or being a travel photographer, being whatever, that until you actually get that, there's definitely the cool aspect of all these things, but there's always the site that the behind the scenes stuff that you don't talk about.
I mean, it's the world's tiniest violin, because yes, it's super cool. Like it's super fun. I love doing it when you're in that moment and things are working great, and you're getting the right shots and meeting these amazing people. It's incredible. But yeah, there are, you got to wake up at 4 a.m. all these times. You got to do out there, and sometimes you're on the road and you get pneumonia and you're stuck in a Kenyan hospital for 2 weeks. So every so often there's a downside, you know.
Story.
Or just always hunting. You're always got to be hunting for the next job, the next client, the next person to pay you. And when you're building up your work and your clients, there's a lot in those early days of proving your worth and why you are worth charging things. It gets a little better as you get more and more into the industry, but there's always a nature of like, why does this cost that? And why do you know? So there's a lot in the beginning. As you get further and further into a career, that gets much better. But that's certainly all these little things from a business perspective that are kind of like stopping you from succeeding and getting to the next level. And you got to get around that. And that's all part of it.
A big part of it.
Yeah. I was just thinking with the artist series, a different one, which, and you probably already shot a bunch on assignment, but doing one with, if you could get some really awesome chef to say, hey, I will trade you this amazing food for me photographing it and that whole experience. I could see that one being difficult on the waistline, but really, really good on the from an interest standpoint, and two, just go, wow, I got some amazing food. And you can do that like all over the world. If you travel certain places and
Yeah, there's a balance on that too. There are certainly people like I know I was just talking with a cruise client, right? And there are people who will go and will jump on a cruise and exchange the cost of the cruise for giving them images of the environment as they went along, right?
yeah,
Um, but there's also like I'll go and do that and be able to charge per day on doing those kind of things as well. Now, there's a point in your work where obviously maybe one quality of work is a little better than other for what it fits, but you gotta be careful on sort of giving away the farm every single time just for those experiences. It's knowing the worth your images are providing and how that is giving value to the business. I mean, the grand dilution of that these days is all these Instagrammers who are traveling and we just want to stay at that nice hotel, and I'll take some nice photos of your place to stay at this nice hotel. Okay, that gets you a cool place traveling too, but those hotels were paying for that before.
right.
So they're not anymore.
It does a disservice to the industry. I remember years ago, this writer he was a professional writer for a guitar magazine, and so he loved to travel. So what he would do is he would submit requests to various places he wanted to go and say, I'm going to write up a story. Can I basically get comped? So he never got a single travel story published, but he got a lot of comped vacations.
Oh my God.
He's a damn good, again, guitar writer for a big guitar magazine, but apparently not not a great travel writer.
Yeah, I mean, when I travel for editorial work, generally everything is comped. That's because they're getting publicity in a magazine usually. Like we're writing a story either about them or adjacent to them. If I'm doing a regional piece on southern France, I may be staying at 3 hotels and going to a couple different restaurants and some farms and things like that, and there's chateaus, obviously. So the hotels are going to have either a visual or some mention of that in the story. Just depends what the focus of the story is, and by no means they understand too. It's not like a grand mention at all of them, and nor will it be a good mention if I stay there and it's terrible. I'm not a reviewer. I'm not going to write a bad review or put that. But like, if I stay at a hotel and I'm like, would I honestly send people here? No, then they're not going in the story, even though they might have comped me a $2,500 room a night. That's the nature of editorial travel. It has to be a genuine recommendation and a genuine place you'd send somewhere. There's no quid pro quo on like, well, they comped me this, where
I have to
sometimes I feel like that's the problem with on a lot of the Instagrammers is they'll get the free stay and now there is a quid pro quo nature to it. I guess my push myself for traditional journalism and magazines.
Absolutely. Thank God. Singing from the rooftops.
Yeah, seriously. Again, without integrity, there's nothing. I think anyway. So
I mean, when I travel still and I want recommendations, I go back to publications and see spots that are recommended there. I'll do my own research and source too, some things to supplement. But like I know someone went there, someone actually tried it, and can recommend it versus just like, well, I'm getting paid to be here or do that. It's
no due diligence for sure. Well, at least I do. I like to dig.
She's great at this. So I'm my expectations are low. Again, I enjoy all levels.
Well, no, but
yeah,
all sorts of things we could talk about, but over tourists, I mean, everything, the places that have so much over tourism that
it's a tough one on that, for sure. I definitely try to recommend going to different places, going slightly off the path. Good travel requires some work. It requires a bit of upfront from the traveler to look into somewhere that may not be as fully touristed, to find a different destination. Everyone wants picture postcard perfect Santorini, Greece. But then when you're in line, you know, with 10,000 people on that cable car queue to go up the mountain and back, is it really the experience you wanted? And is it really actually doing anything for the local economy? I don't think so.
No. Again, they're all standing in a queue in order to get the same shot and the same what's called a postcard, and then they all hop back and you go and yeah. So outside of having been to Santorini, it was not quite the experience that we had hoped. And again, we enjoyed Santorini, but it's just so touristy in all the spots that you see.
Yeah,
that's the only place people go.
But even here, it's like you're in Paris, but everyone has the trip they got off of Instagram. There's a big long line, but changes of clothes to a certain view, and then 10 feet over here is a whole other view.
An amazing thing. Yeah, I mean, it's the commodification of kind of the visual is what Instagram has done, and people who make their livelihoods on Instagram, so they have to be pressured to get that one shot to repeat that same thing.
Like the imagination has disappeared from travel. Yeah. That's why it's refreshing to speak to somebody like you, to look at how fresh and beautiful your images are, because they're not cookie cutter, following a trend. And I don't need to tell you.
Always the place that's just off the path that kind of becomes your most favorite. Like Machu Picchu in Peru is amazing, wonderful. But when you're going through that Disney style queue to get into it, it loses a little touch of that magic. Whereas there's some sites around it, maybe in Ollantaytambo or Laris and things like that, that are like, wow, that's incredible. And I didn't really know much about it. I hadn't been oversaturated on the imagery, and you got there and it was a small amount of people and you're like, wow, this is incredible. You know, if you had Machu Picchu to yourself, yeah, it'd probably be amazing. But that's just not the reality of a destination like that anymore. Sure. So again, good travel requires some effort, some work on your part to be that person. And everyone always makes this distinction of the tourist versus the traveler, right? Like, oh, these are tourists doing bad things and I'm a traveler, so I'm looking at it. But I think that's a cop out to owning out on putting in that work too. We're all tourists. If we're going somewhere and it's not somewhere you've been before and it's on vacation or something, you're a tourist.
Yes.
Don't shed that like, oh, it's them doing bad things and not me. Cop to those things you may not be doing to help out the local communities as much, or the things that put you in the same spot as everyone else. And if you want to be a better traveler, put in that effort to do it.
Exactly. Put the effort in. That's exactly it.
Yeah, that also, I think, to be a little open to change. Like say, okay, to serendipity, to go, all right, yeah, let's find out what's around that corner. Because like,
find it
here. So if everybody's standing here, I'm curious now what's there.
Yeah. And sometimes you're going to run into something and be like, well, okay, that wasn't that great or not ideal. That's part of travel too.
If you don't look around that corner, you never know though.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're just like, you can't like try to maximize every little element of it to be the most amazing thing, because it's not going to be, because everyone else is doing the same thing.
Exactly.
Exactly. Getting in to see have to see the Mona Lisa. I'll go see the rest of the museum, and on my way out, if there's space, I'll poke my head into the Mona Lisa.
well, I think people have these lists that they have to share with their friends. Like it's like, they did it, I have to do it. This bucket list of things they don't really care about, that they think that they go around. Speaking of Paris, the Mona Lisa is one of them. People endure the Louvre and they don't even like art, just to spend half a day hunting down.
Right. I saw the Mona Lisa in the Louvre.
And it's
just to say they've said
just because they have top of their list. So anyway,
list travel is definitely kind of one of the problems of our, I guess, modern tourist era.
Yeah, like how could you go to Paris and not see the Mona Lisa?
Not that I'm not guilty of it here and there too.
Yeah,
but
we all are.
But we've all seen. You want to see, again. There's a reason these things make postcards and magazines and stuff, because there's something spectacular about them.
Sure.
But to base your entire enjoyment on whether you made that exact same photograph that every other person did versus, say, again, since we live here in Paris now, there's so much more to Paris, than just an old iron tower and some other cool things, which are actually cool and worth seeing. But to base your entire thing, like waiting on a line to get that one shot when you could be doing all the other things that make it. Then
Yeah. I mean, when you get to these such diverse and complex cities like that, it's the same with New York City, right? And I remember getting a commission on a Nat Geo Traveler story for New York, I think it was last year or two. And it was like, great, what New York story are we telling? Because there's so many of them, right? And there's so many different focuses and ways we could do this. So what's the story we're going to tell on this?
Yeah.
Sure.
True, exactly. So on we won't. I mean,
Yeah. Again, I think it was
any longer. But where can people find you, or where is the best place for people to see your work? We're gonna
Sure.
show notes.
I'm always on Instagram now too. I keep everything pretty simple. On my branding is my name, so just Matt Dutile. So Instagram will be Matt Dutile. The website's mattdutile.com. Pretty easy to find me on those, and you can see more of my work on both of them, and more of what I'm up to. Either stories I'm releasing or trips I'm coming back from. Yeah, and then right, and I've got the photo workshops coming up this year, so you can find more on that. So there's like I'm around in the ethos on that, I'm around.
Excellent.
Cool.
We so appreciate you taking the time.
Yep, thank you.
It was so wonderful. I love it. Well, hopefully the people who are listening to this and not seeing it will go see it, because your photos were fantastic, and I want everyone to see them.
Yeah,
Thanks very much. Yeah, it's a beast to narrow it down to 10. That's a little.
You took an impossible.
As you see, I put together duopane, so I failed at that mission.
Well, again, you did a great job with it, because it
complement each
again,
other.
it fits the criteria while expanding on the.
Yeah. I skirt that line just a little bit.
Then a quarter while it fits, but. Very cool.
Well, thank you so much.
Yep,
Thank you guys. Glad to chat, and I hope to stay in touch too.
Yeah, again, if you get an assignment out here in France, let us know.
Yeah, definitely. I got to get out there for the Olympics. I've been watching it every day on the TV, so I'm like,
I'm surprised you can't hear.
Can I go? Can I go for the last week?
Yeah, the helicopters are going over all the time.
Can you hear them?
Like, there's more helicopters or people in the streets.
There you go.
The venues is right here, so the helicopters are above the venue. The open venue. So.
Not too bad though to say you've got the Olympic helicopters around you.
Yeah. And Olympic breakdancing like 6 blocks away.
The BMX.
There you go.
Anyway,
all right, guys.
So much. Take care. Good luck with all your
so much.
And thank you.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Hopefully see you soon.
Yeah. Bye.